Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct pleasure to address the Permanent Council for the first time in my capacity as the Chairperson in office of the OSCE and present you an overview of the priorities of the Serbian chairmanship. My entire address will be distributed in writing. I am looking forward to hearing your feedback on the challenging task that lie ahead of all of us in 2015. I take this opportunity to thank the Swiss Minister Burkhalter and his chairmanship team for the excellent cooperation and the valuable input for our future work. I also wish to extend a warm welcome to Germany as the new member of OSCE Troika. As this year marks the 40th anniversary of the Helsinki Final Act, I would like to begin by reminding ourselves of the breakthrough our predecessors were willing and able to achieve. It is not only that they managed to carve out a document which gives guidance on the norms and principles we as participating states committed ourselves to, but they followed up on these commitments in good faith and left us an invaluable legacy in print and deed. Let us recall different references from the Helsinki Final Act which speak of solidarity, common purpose, overcoming confrontations and distrust, developing mutual understanding and increasing confidence, cooperation in the interest of mankind and well-being of all peoples. These words resonate today in the same way as 40 years ago and appropriately describe the very essence of their endeavor at the time. Although much has changed since then, our responsibility to act consistently in defense of the very norms and principles of this document is ever more relevant. The notions that prevail in this legacy are those of dialogue and compromise, peaceful resolution of disputes, confidence building, solidarity, responsibility, and cooperation. They will be the main tenets of our chairmanship in addressing the current challenges we are all facing. And this is why I suggest going back to the roots of the CSCE, OSCE, so as to raise awareness of our joint responsibility for peace and security in Europe. Rebuilding trust and confidence in order to create a positive agenda for the future, if I would have to summarize it in a motto. The chairmanship of Serbia comes at a very difficult moment. The horrific attack of 2 days ago in eastern Ukraine, in which several people were killed and wounded, is yet another proof of that. I strongly condemned this attack and offered my deepest condolences to the families of the victims. I called on all sides to immediately halt the use of force and exercise restraint. I urge them now again to do the same and reiterate the necessity to fully respect the regime of quiet. Obviously, the situation in and around Ukraine continues to pose a serious threat for the stability of the region, as well as for the European and global security. The main priority of our work will be to support all efforts which can lead towards a peace process. Together with the Troika, we intend to work with the main stakeholders on the peaceful resolution of this crisis through dialogue. Without sincere dialogue between the main stakeholders, as well as among the participating states, it will be extremely difficult to come to the resolution of this crisis. In this regard, it's crucial to invest all efforts to achieve sustainable ceasefire and full cessation of hostilities. Implementation of the Minsk documents by all is essential. The Special Monitoring Mission has the mandate and ability to assist in carrying out the provisions on these two instruments in full, and it has proven to be an invaluable and unique asset in terms of international response to the crisis. I strongly support the efforts of the Chief Monitor Ambassador Apakan and the Special Representative Ambassador Tagliavini, and I expect that the work of the Trilateral Contact Group will contribute significantly to strengthening the arrangements signed in Minsk in furthering the peace process. Just before assuming the chairmanship, I had meetings with my colleagues from the Russian Federation and Ukraine, as well as with some of my colleagues from the EU countries, and they all reiterated their determination to work on the peaceful resolution of the crisis in Ukraine. Many of the interlocutors pointed out to the excellent relations Serbia enjoys with all the key stakeholders as a potential advantage. I can assure you that Serbia is ready to act as an honest broker in this process and utilize the advantages OSCE offers as an organization in an impartial and transparent way. It is, however, our joint responsibility, particularly of the key stakeholders in the process, to engage in creating the environment for dialogue and compromise. I also wish to add that compromise cannot be reached at the expense of the OSCE norms and principles we all committed to, and this is something I have been very open about. Ladies and gentlemen, based on these fundamental principles upon which the OSCE was founded, we will also place high on the agenda the resolution of protracted conflicts through agreed formats. I believe there is room to try to move away from the status quo in relation to the protracted conflicts in the OSCE area, and we should step up our efforts in that direction. Needless to say that the high-level contacts between the parties should continue, and the meetings of the formats should proceed regularly without hindrance. At the same time, having in mind the prevailing circumstances, we believe that some small but concrete steps could improve trust and confidence among parties, thus opening the way to tackle substantive problems. At the end of the day, the key to advancing the peace processes related to unresolved conflicts in the OSCE area lies mainly with the parties. On our part, we need to pledge our collective support to their peaceful settlement by investing additional efforts to generate the necessary political will. This year will be important in terms of ensuring that the most recent experiences of the OSCE are translated into more effective tools and activities which could help us reinvigorate our efforts in addressing the protracted conflicts and prevent the occurrences of crisis. These OSCE tools should be employed in order to address the issues of human security regardless of divergence of positions. I once again wish to emphasize the importance of benefits of utilizing the OSCE presences and operations on the ground, as well as the significance of the OSCE as the largest regional organization under Chapter 8 of the UN Charter. Ladies and gentlemen, as Serbia was putting forward the candidacy for the OSCE chairmanship, we considered that the chairmanship of a country from the Western Balkans would bring added value to the work of our organization, particularly in terms of translating the lessons learned from our experiences to the wider OSCE geography. The OSCE has certainly played an important role in the post-conflict transition processes, especially in supporting a wide range of reforms in the whole Western Balkans. Although each region in the OSCE area has its specific context, the need for dialogue and reconciliation is ever more pronounced under current challenging geopolitical circumstances. Our own experience indicates that despite many obstacles, a positive agenda can be created by reframing the prevailing context in a pragmatic and goal-oriented manner. I believe our chairmanship can also give additional impetus to this positive agenda by intensifying regional cooperation and furthering the reconciliation processes. Recent transfer of ownership of the sub-regional arms control arrangement under Dayton Article 4 represents another example of the progress that the region was able to make in terms of confidence building and military transparency in a post-conflict setting. This successful story reminds us that there is always room for improvement of our politico-military instruments, including the Vienna document, and the necessity for their full implementation and modernization. We intend to support the continuation of the dialogue on arms control and hope that the discussions this year will help create an environment conducive to making progress in the European security architecture. We will closely cooperate with our colleagues from Mongolia, Montenegro, and Norway in advancing our work in the Forum for Security Cooperation in preparation for the annual Security Review Conference. Ladies and gentlemen, recent events have unfortunately highlighted once again that the international community should remain vigilant in the face of existing and emerging terrorist threats. I wish to offer once again my deepest condolences to the families of the victims of last week's attack in Paris and to the French people. This horrific act of violence highlighted some very important issues involving threats for our societies. Freedom of expression and protection of journalists need to be safeguarded in the face of ever-growing challenges posed to them. We need to be unequivocal in our condemnation of all forms of terrorism, while at the same time ensuring that our societies remain united against the attempts to create divisions on the basis of religion. It falls on all our governments to take the necessary measures, not only in terms of countering terrorism and providing security to our citizens, but also fostering tolerance and non-discrimination in our societies. The OSCE has an important role to play on both of these fronts with its comprehensive approach. We will devote particular attention this year to the phenomenon of foreign terrorist fighters, as well as violent extremism in radicalization that led to terrorism, particularly the radicalization of youth. We appreciate the excellent work done last year by our Swiss colleagues in all three dimensions, and during our chairmanship we will continue to work on the basis of our joint work plan with specific focus on certain topics of interest. Other than the counter-terrorism issues, activities in the first dimension will be focused in emerging threats of cybersecurity, mutual impact between organized crime and countering trafficking in human beings and irregular migrations, as well as to the issues of security sector governance and reform. Second dimension will address the issues which are partly motivated by our national priorities, such as anti-corruption, water governance, and disaster risk reduction and preparedness. We will strive to further update and strengthen the implementation of all OSCE human dimensions commitments through strengthening national institutions for protection of human rights. Emphasis will be on the rule of law, freedom of expression and freedom of the media, including safety of journalists, freedom of assembly and association, protection of rights of persons belonging to national minorities, and promotion of tolerance and non-discrimination. Ladies and gentlemen, many of these topics require a cross-dimensional approach while encompassing youth and gender perspectives, which is another quality of the OSCE, especially when it comes to grassroots level activities. I am pleased to announce that we will be the first to appoint the chairmanship representatives on youth. Aware of the importance of fostering increased participation of youth in political life and decision-making processes, we decided to continue the innovative practice of our Swiss colleagues initiated in Basel and provide them with an opportunity to participate in the Permanent Council. Today, we will once again hear from our youth representatives their own views on the issues of security in Europe and the role of young people. I would like to take a moment and give the floor to our youth ambassador, Mr. Milena Stosic.
Thank you very much. Excellencies, Chairperson in office, thank you for providing the opportunity for the youth's voice to be heard. I'm sure that I'm not only speaking on my own behalf when I say that young people have very much appreciated the unprecedented efforts that the consecutive chairmanships of Switzerland and Serbia have made to bring youth issues onto the agenda of this organization. They have greatly contributed to a better understanding among youth of the values and principles of the Helsinki Final Act, and as well as to a greater interest of youth in contributing to peace. Youth ambassadors from 57 OSCE participating states have evolved during last year to engage in a broad variety of issues, but mostly tackling security, youth, and active participation across the OSCE region. Aside from the creation of the Model OSCE Youth Action Plan, youth ambassadors have also engaged in various independent activities to bridge the gap between the OSCE and the youth. These activities include, among others, visits to OSCE field missions, information sharing with our national youth councils and networks, outreach toward other young people about the OSCE mandate, and participation in various OSCE events. Still, I'm certain that the majority of young people remains unaware of what the OSCE is and does. Many may be thinking that they do not need to know about this organization. But there are young people who do know that they don't want civil wars. There are young people who do know they need their representatives in the parliaments. There are young people who are advocates for tolerance, freedom of speech, and human rights. There are young people who are ecologically aware. There are young entrepreneurs. Although they don't necessarily call all these concerns military, political, societal, ecological, or economic security, all these security dimensions cross-influence each other and undoubtedly have an impact on the everyday life of all people, including youth. The comprehensive security concept of the OSCE picks up on these interdependent dimensions of security, which is what makes it highly relevant still today. And for what youth know and need, they are more often than other groups ready to get active. They are the first to start or join social movements, to protest for our common values, to fight for better living conditions, and to speak out loud for the truth, or for what they perceive as truth, which lead us to the fact that young people can also be manipulated and made to be first to take up guns. Luckily, within this quite heterogeneous group we call youth, there are those who possess not only energy, but also have the knowledge and motivation to contribute to peace building, conflict prevention, and security. Dostoevsky wrote, "Well, sir, it is precisely my notion that one sees and learns most of all by observing our younger generations." I will be free enough to add to this that cooperation with the younger generations and joint efforts, exchange of different perspectives, and deploying various resources can contribute not only to mutual learning, but also to the overall goals that all generations and countries gathered around the OSCE share. As I said previously, maybe not all young people have to know all about the OSCE, but it is important that as many as possible share the values of the OSCE. Therefore, my hope is that Serbia, as current chairmanship in office, and my home country, will embrace this fact and will continue enabling youth participation. Even more, I hope that all other OSCE participating states will recognize the enormous benefit that this participation can bring to our societies, and that they therefore continue themselves to facilitate it. So that this time next year, we have another year to look back to filled with progress and concrete results of our joint efforts. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Milena. The notion of inclusiveness would not be complete if we did not mention the participation of civil society in our activities and the complementary role it plays in improving the policies of participating states and safeguarding human rights. Ladies and gentlemen, in our efforts to achieve the peaceful resolution to the ongoing crisis, we should not lose sight on the broader strategic outlook on the European security and the importance of upholding our common values and principles. The role of the OSCE in this respect remains crucial, both as a platform for dialogue and a mechanism of stability. It has proven that through the last year's engagement in Ukraine, despite very difficult circumstances, the main responsibility falls on all of us, 57 participating states, to make progress in the context of the Helsinki Plus 40 process and create a positive agenda and tangible outcomes for the stronger OSCE that we envision for the future. I believe that the panel of eminent persons on the European security could be of benefit with some fresh ideas in this respect. By going back to the roots of the CSCE, OSCE, my intentions is to refer to the strength and courage of our predecessors who were able to muster political will in times of far deeper divisions and try to reflect it into our ongoing joint endeavors. In this age of technology and lightning communication, when things move more quickly than we could have ever imagined 40 years ago, the threats are evolving at the same pace. Our joint responsibility is to prevent the existing tensions from turning into conflicts of an even larger scale. The years of our engagement within this organization should also give rise to a certain level of maturity in our dialogue. Restoring trust and confidence among the participating states while respecting the principles and undertaken commitments lying at the core of our security and cooperation should be the essential elements of our joint endeavor. The chairmanship is considering the possibility of marking the 40th anniversary of the Helsinki Final Act in the summer with an informal high-level gathering in the very place of its making, and we will inform you in due time of the developments in this regard. Although 70 years passed since the end of the Second World War and the defeat of Nazism, extreme ideas and hate crimes have still not vanished. It is our duty and responsibility to continuously point out to the universal values of human rights, tolerance, and non-discrimination, and the importance of dialogue, confidence building, solidarity, and cooperation in tackling today's challenges. I join the strong voice of the many world leaders who stand firmly in defense of those universal values of humanity. Serbia's engagement with the CSCE, OSCE, has been long-standing and dates back to its beginnings. At the time, Yugoslavia was not only among the founding states of the CSCE, but also the most active and prominent ones. As you might all remember, the first follow-up meeting to the CSCE was held in Belgrade in 1977 and 1978. This year, in December, after almost 40 years, our capital, Belgrade, will again be the host of a high-level OSCE meeting, and I'm looking forward to welcoming you on that occasion. I hope my words will receive broad support around this table, and that at the end of 2015, we will be able to create a positive agenda, a step forward for the future of peace and security in Europe. Thank you for your attention.